8:52 here, Big 550 KTRS. Well, he was the governor of Arkansas, and then he was a presidential candidate. His book is in paperback, God's Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Mr. Mike Huckabee, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Well, great to be on with you guys. Thank you so much.
You got us. Tell us about the book now in paperback.
You know, if people want to understand why Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are just scaring the daylights out of the political ruling class, I only invite them to read the book, and they'll get a real understanding of what's happening in our culture. I think sometimes people hear the term God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy, and they think I've written a book on Southern cuisine with a recipe in it, but it's actually a description of the disconnect between the people living in the bubbles of Wall Street, Washington, and Hollywood, and the people living in the land of what I call God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy, out here in the red states, flyover country, if you will. And that disconnect and the fact that people are tired of being gut-punched by the donor class, the ruling class, the elites, the establishment, call them whatever you will, but they get it. There is a Washington to Wall Street axis of power. Those guys do fine. 6 of the 10 richest counties in America surround Washington, D.C. Think about that. They don't make cars, they don't make iPhones, they make government. And the disconnect has now driven the people out here in the land of God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy to a level of anger and rage, and we are seeing no less than an overthrow of our government before our very eyes.
No question about it, former Governor Mike Huckabee, but they have other options out there, right? They have more traditional candidates who are saying similar things, but not in the crass way that Donald Trump is saying it. So why haven't they gone with, say, somebody like you or a Kasich or a Jeb Bush, and why are they going for the crassest man in the room?
Well, I was saying those things about the whole interest of the corporations and the globalists and how our trade deals are killing us. I was saying 8 years ago, I was getting beat up by the elites and the establishment. And, you know, this time what happened was I got no megaphone. The media put all their helium in the balloon of Donald Trump. You know, I'm somewhat amazed when I hear some of these talking heads on television, and they act like they just can't believe Trump is doing so well. And I'm thinking, well, you guys created him. You gave him all the airtime. You put his every speech on, and now you act shocked. But what has happened is people are aware that he's the only person left on the stage who isn't funded really by the same corporatists, the same folks, the donor class, who fund both Democrats and Republicans. And the reason Bernie Sanders, I think, is doing well on his side is because of the same thing. You know, they know that even if they don't agree with some of his policies, I hope they don't agree with any of them, but even if they don't, they say, here's a guy who is not a wholly owned subsidiary of the same people who have screwed this country up, who have gotten us in the mess, and who have done it so that, you know, they're still living fine, but 5 million Americans lost their homes to foreclosure, and we've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs since the year 2000.
Your daughter, in terms of full disclosure, is now working for Donald Trump, correct?
That's correct. She was my campaign manager. She's gone to work for Trump. I have not endorsed anyone. Don't plan to during the primary. You know, I will support whoever our nominee is on the Republican side. I'm not one that says, well, if it doesn't go my way, then I'm going to quit. And I'm angry about those Republicans who say that, because I think that's being petulant, and it's also, to me, reminiscent of why people are upset, is because, listen to some of these guys. They're saying, well, if we don't get who we want, then we just are not going to play. Well, that's not how they were doing it back when some of us wanted different candidates in previous elections, and they said, look, we got to be loyal, got to circle the wagons, and we all owned up and did it. Well, it goes both ways, and I just find some of the comments, Mitt Romney's comments were absurd, utterly absurd. And what he basically was saying was all the people who are supporting Donald Trump are too stupid to know that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And I just find that offensive and off-putting, and it's a form of elitist snobbery that has been the reason that we have this kind of revolt in the political world today.
Mike Huckabee with us. His book is God's Guns, Grits, and Gravy, now out in paperback. But many people say that his opinions and his philosophies and his arguments aren't conservative. He's the only one out there promoting that Planned Parenthood has done some good things. He's out there praising President Putin and calling George W. Bush a liar. So if he's not a conservative, how does a conservative vote for him regardless of what party he's running?
There are a lot of things Trump has said that I don't agree with him, and I think Planned Parenthood is a good example. But, you know, when I look at and I see these orthodox conservatives, the people, I'm a conservative, but I think I'm a pretty pure conservative. But here's my question. If orthodox conservatism has given us the loss of jobs, has given us bailouts to the big corporations, and a kick in the rear to working-class Americans who've had stagnant wages for 40 years, you see, I think what we're seeing is an election that is not a traditional horizontal election of left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. It's a vertical election. People are asking, are we going to get better? Are we going to get worse? They'd rather win than lose. Trump's message is a simple message. We're going to win. We're going to make America great. That's a vertical message. People care less about where he is horizontally. They care more about where he's going to take this country vertically.
Mike Huckabee, is there a bridge too far? If the Republican nominee were somehow pro-choice, would you still support a Republican nominee who was pro-choice?
I'd have a hard time doing anything other than maybe reluctantly voting for a person if the Democrats pro-choice too, because I think pro-life is a foundational issue, not of politics, but of civilization. So I hope I don't have to face that choice. Fortunately, on the Republican side, there are no candidates who are pro-choice.
Currently.
Pro-life.
Currently.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was pro-choice at one point.
He was.
Yes.
And I think I've listened to him and I've talked with him about his real, I think, transition to being pro-life, and I understand how it happened and why it happened, and I think it's very sincere.
Mike Huckabee, the book is God's Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
8:59 KTRS.